Strive and Thrive is a collection of discussions featuring guests from various fields, focused on guiding entrepreneurs in creating businesses that excel in every aspect: people, planet, and profit. Throughout the series, you can join us, Romesh and Mike, as we explore relevant topics with our guests which can help businesses thrive.
Romesh and I met while I was supporting a client transforming their business, and I needed finance director support and reached out to him and his team. Since then, we've become good friends who share a passion for business and entrepreneurship. If you like today's discussion, then you want to subscribe to our YouTube and Spotify channels. Hi everyone, and welcome to this special edition of Strive and Thrive. On today's episode, it's going to be a little bit different. You're going to hear directly from myself and Romesh as we dive into the latest budget. We'll unpack what it really means for businesses, for founders, for innovation, and for the everyday decision leaders, and what is going on and what is going to make they can do right now. Romesh, I know you've reviewed the budget in a lot of detail and looked into the impact. What stood out from you from the budget on Wednesday?
Hey Mike, nice to see you. You're looking quite relaxed, and you're wearing a t-shirt. It's quite warm where you are, I see.
Yeah, we're going for the full-on sauna approach in our house right
now. Good call. So look, it's been quite a long and arduous process, hasn't it, this time round? I think there's been a lot of anxiety for business owners, for people everywhere, actually, individuals and businesses. And I think some of that anxiety has been a little bit unnecessary. But nevertheless, we now have the information to hand, and we understand kind of what is in the budget and what it means for us. So yeah, I've spent a bit of time unpacking it. I've worked quite hard at trying to take away emotion and political thoughts and why we are where we are. Just accepting that we are where we are, I suppose, before ultimately summarizing it. So my view of the budget is that there's a lot of tough decisions the government has made, which are going to impact us as business owners in a negative way. There are a number of good things the Chancellor has put forward, but the main takeaway is for me that despite the fact that there are challenges remaining and the picture is not rosy, actually it could have been far, far worse. And I'll be happy to go into the detail of that. But just to build upon that, why isn't the budget quite as scary as we anticipated? And I think it's because there were widely held beliefs that corporation tax, national insurance rates would go up. They've been held, and that's great news, right? That's great news. There's been a move to stimulate investment with a number of scheme enhancements, which is great news for the SME world. And tellingly, I think the financial markets have reacted in a neutral / marginally positive way, which I think reflects that scenario. So that's my kind of high level view.
What's your kind of biggest takeaway for SMEs and founders from what you've just summed up there and in terms of impact? Yeah,
so I started off with the positives. I mean, the challenges are, national living wage changes means that there is going to be quite possibly an increase in employment costs for many business owners. Now, look, raising national living wages is good in other aspects for society, but we've already had hits in employment costs with national insurance increases last time round, etc. So that is definitely something that we need to look at. SME business owners will be personally hit with the 2% increase in dividend rates, which is tough. It's tough. Can't be avoided. That's, in the sense, the impact that that's going to have on everyone. You can't water that down. That's tough. And there's also a cap on pension contributions via salary sacrifice, which will hit SME business owners and leadership and employees as well. So yeah, there are some stiff challenges. And as I said, whilst the worst case scenario hasn't actually come to pass, our worst fears, if you like, I think the picture is far from rosy.
Yeah, one of the interesting areas that you and I have touched on when we've in preparation for this is the kind of employer versus business owner impact, and of the particularly of the dividend. What's your view on that and the kind of impact that will have on potential founders and comparison to employees?
Yeah, I think probably. Look, if we take a step back, let's look at why this budget is as punitive and punishing as it is, because it is punishing in a number of ways, right? We can't avoid that. I'd say, let's not analyze why we are where we are, but we are where we are. And the fact is that, stats I was reading recently, for every £10 that the government receives as tax income, it spends £1 just paying debt interest. So 10% of the government's revenues roughly are, being used in a completely unconstructive way, which doesn't help our country. And that, I think, is a massive problem. So the government is trying to reduce the debt burden so that we can manage that better and use our taxable income as a nation more effectively, which I support. As I said, let's not go into how and why we are where we are, but that's a scenario. So look, I'm a believer in, as the finance director in the room, I'm a believer that an organization has to be sustainable financially to survive, and the government has to do that for the nation, right? So that's the reason, that's the context of why the budget is so tough. Nevertheless, it's disappointing to me that SME business owners, particularly of smaller businesses, are being treated with these changes almost as employees from a taxation perspective. So what I mean by that is, by increasing dividend rates for smaller business owners, and that's a critical way that they will get cash out of the business for themselves, you are equalizing the tax burden between an employee and an owner. And my challenge to that is, look, the risk profile for both those scenarios is so different. If you are a business owner, particularly of a small business, you are taking a big risk. You're doing the hard yards. You're navigating the challenges that exist in the wider economy, trying to get sales in on a regular basis, employing people, bearing these costs, navigating cash flow issues. An employee, look, everyone, employees have their challenges too, but they don't bear the burden of carrying the weight of an entire business, however large or small, on their shoulders. And I think that is a critical difference. And if we are looking to encourage and stimulate growth, we need to, I think, make a distinction there. And the government has just moved in the other direction, I think.
Well, I think it's a really important point, and I think a lot of founders, particularly myself and others, don't pay themselves consistently. We're consistently managing the cash flow challenge and what the balance is for what that looks like. And a couple of founders I've spoke to over the last sort of month, and particularly I chased around a few people yesterday for feedback, and the insight they're giving me is, hang on a minute, I'm the one who's ensuring all my employees get paid first, then I get paid second, and that I'll only pay myself if I can, and I've got confidence in the business in the next 3 to 6 months. So to your point, taking on a bigger risk and actually in doing so not necessarily getting the rewards themselves. And I think one of the challenges to your point here is, how do you incentivize some of these organizations, some of these individuals, to keep going and to keep believing that what they're doing is the right thing, when you're going, actually, am I better off just becoming an employee? And what we don't want to do is trigger that move where founders are suddenly moving from, I want to run my own business, to I'm actually better off being employed, and therefore moving away from becoming a founder in an SME. And I know a few companies are thinking like that right now.
Yeah, I think that is a risk. And look, context again, I really hope that this is the last of these kind of budgets, and future budgets will be more progressive and positive and more incentivizing. I mean, as I said, there have been incentives for SME businesses, which is the focus of this podcast, and we'll talk about them in a bit more detail in a second. But we need to take care of the smaller end of the business world as well, because that's the backbone of the economy ultimately.
Touching on the economy, I want to come back to what it means for you in advising the companies you work for in a minute. But touching on the economy, what's your view on the impact this will have on the economy? Because one of the biggest insights for me prior to the budget was the nervousness that was going on, the anticipation of what might be a really difficult budget, was seeing customers holding back sales, delaying decision making, which is way more impactful than any sort of small change in the budget. And what's your view in terms of the overall economic picture?
Yeah, it's a good question, Mike. I think there was a lot of uncertainty, there was a lot of anxiety, and yeah, people were expecting the worst. But look, I think it's not as bad as it could have been. We must stress that it's not as bad as it could have been, and now we know where we are. So, look, if we go to the OBR, the Office for Budget Responsibility, they're actually saying, so from a wider perspective, they're saying that the 2025 forecast is actually upgraded from 1% to 1.5%. So that's not bad. Growth to 2029 has actually been slightly downgraded to around 1.5% continuously to 2029. So it's a kind of mixed picture from an official forecasting perspective, but nevertheless, growth is anticipated. And I've done my research from a number of different sources, and from what I've read, there's confidence in the government that they'll be able to exceed some of these targets. So let's see. But if you take it down to SME level, we know where we are now. It could have been worse. Let's just keep going. And I'm sure that future budget rounds are going to be better. They have to be, right?
Yeah. And what, I know we touched on this earlier, but risks and what moves SMEs and founders should take going forward now they know this little bit more information from the budget. What's your advice to kind of small SMEs and companies who are reflecting on what happened this week and what next?
Yeah, so I think. So what I will do, I'll answer this, and then perhaps, Mike, I'll go through the kind of positives and negatives in a bit more detail to inform our listeners. But I think it's understand what the key elements of the budget are that are going to impact you. So hopefully the next section will be of interest to you. And And then when you understand the impact, navigate them. So where there's a challenge, think about it and see how you can soften the impact. If there are opportunities from, for example, an investment perspective or an apprenticeship perspective, do your research and see if it's a viable path for you to take advantage of. And I think there is an onus on all of us as business owners, business leaders, business leadership to be proactive and look at the opportunities, as well as kind of saying, okay, woe is me kind of thing. Let's look for the light and let's see what we can try and do. It's not going to be easy in this environment. I'm really not saying that, but there are some, if you like, chinks of light. And ultimately, it's planning ahead carefully. Yeah, that's what I would say. So shall I give a quick summary of what I see as the positives of the budget, and then
Yep. Go for it. Dig in a bit.
The tougher impacts. Cool. Okay. So the first big positive is, if we look at corporation tax and financial reliefs, first of all, so there is no change in corporation tax. So this does provide stability for business planning, and a context. We do have the lowest corporation tax rate amongst G7 countries. So just giving some factual context, so we kind of see that, and thank goodness they didn't go up. There has been an extension of the full expensing program, which means that if you have qualifying equipment, plant, machinery, technology, you can use that investment to offset your tax. So look into that scheme. There's a chance for you to kind of get the government to support your investing, which I think is a really good thing. Business rate support, and small businesses, especially those in retail, hospitality and leisure, will benefit from ongoing relief. There's a 75% rate discount, which has been extended again. Larger or businesses that own larger properties, a slight caveat here, and those properties which are valued at over 500k will be subject to a higher business rate. So that's a slight offset. Staying on the positive side, innovation, investment and growth. We are having an expansion / accessibility increase in the R&D tax credit scheme. So in theory, if you are investing in your business and that investment qualifies under the expanded research and development scheme, you'll be able to get tax back, cash back. So again, and that's worth investigation. The government has also maintained and expanded its investment zones. So, for example, there's a fourth artificial intelligence zone, AI zone as they call them, which is open up in South Wales, and that's going to offer tax breaks and improved infrastructure to attract fast-growing industries. So that's quite exciting. Enterprise investment schemes, which are basically incentives for investors to put their money into businesses, are going to be enhanced, and that's great news. There are already very generous schemes, but they're going to be enhanced, which means that there should be an easier pathway for investors to place their money into businesses to help support, and I think that's again very positive. From an employment and skills perspective, we've got apprenticeship funding, which is going to be increasingly funded. So that should help businesses tackle skill shortages and boost youth employment opportunities as well. And obviously, to everyone's relief, national insurance rates have remained unchanged. So that's really, really good news. finally, from a positive side, sector-specific measures, the green transition, the grants and tax incentives remain available, and they've kind of alluded to enhancing some of those to encourage businesses to invest in environmentally friendly technology and sustainability generally. There are challenges, Mike. Yeah, so I've touched on those. Dividends, again, look, the rate of dividend tax from April next year will increase to 10.75% for the basic tax rate and 35.75% for the higher rate of tax. And again, so that's a 2% increase across the board there. And that's definitely going to hit SME business owners. In terms of employment costs, we've talked about the national living wage increase, which is going to increase by just over 4% from the 1st of April 2026. So, yeah, that could increase the earnings of the full-time earnings of an average worker by, say, £900 to give a flavour of that. Pension salary sacrifice is also capped. And one other thing, finally, that is which is lowering an incentive for SME business owners, and that's employee ownership trusts. So an employee ownership trust, or EOT, we've actually done an episode on that with our good friend Chris Maslin, episode 7, if I believe correctly. So it's a great and viable alternative for business owners to exit their businesses. And the government it allows essentially employees to take over the business and owners to exit gracefully, if that makes sense, in a very equitable kind of balanced way, if done properly. And if you're interested in that, do check our episode, because Chris Maslin talks about getting the balance right there really, really well. Now, the incentives to do that have been reduced by 50% by the government. So there was full capital gains relief, if I understand correctly, in terms of disposals by business owners into EOTs, and that's been capped at 50% tax relief now. So there's still incentivization to go that route, and it's a good route to consider for business owners. However, the incentive has decreased. There you go. There's the specifics. Hope that is useful.
I'm going to try and macro it up a bit, and we'll then go into some specific.
Do.
Obviously, you talked at the beginning around the need for more revenue into the government, but it feels like, based on the way you've explained it and what I've read, that there's kind of an incentivization for investment a little bit, particularly in terms of high growth technology based companies with the investment in AI, opportunities for R&D, science based companies, that they're really trying to stimulate the continuation and growth of those sorts of businesses. On the other hand, the challenging in the founder and SME world are the sort of more traditional service-based businesses that are delivering profitability month on month. They're the ones who are being hit in terms of tax payments. What's your view on that?
Yeah, I think we have to encourage investment to increase productivity, to get our economy growing, and the way the government has looked to address that in this budget is by looking to support high investment businesses. And I think there's merit in that, but I think we shouldn't ignore sustainable smaller businesses that are profitable, that are financially viable and sustainable, but at the moment are, as I said, the example with the dividend tax rate, the business ownership, they're taking the risks, but they're paying the same tax levels as their employees. And, if you boil it back down to, what capitalism means, you're getting reward for taking risk, right? And I think we need to get that balance addressed, albeit with the caveat that, I think we have to recognize that, this was going to be a tough budget because of the scenario we're in. But the hope for me is that the next rounds will be better. And I hope the government focuses on all aspects of SME business support.
Yeah, do you think there's enough in this to incentivize the sustainable, profitable businesses that instead of paying tax, you further invest? Or do you think it doesn't go far enough there? So we're thinking about, the consultancy firms, the marketing agencies, the manufacturing businesses in the UK, the hospitality industries. Do you think there's enough in here to stimulate them to invest? Or do you think it is very much orientated to my sort of world, which is the high-end science and the technology and the high growth industries?
Yeah, I think there's a weighting towards the R&D, high tech industries, high growth, and I think the government needs to correct that next time. So not by any means stop encouraging that, because that's a great thing as well, right?
Yeah.
But we have to look at the backbone of the UK economy, which is smaller businesses, smaller sustainable businesses. And they're making a vital contribution. And look, I would summarize the position for them as they're worse off under this budget, but they're not as worse off as they could have been. And that's not a brilliant picture to paint, but it's better than it could have been. And therefore, my advice to SME business owners of sustainable businesses is just, and again, financially sustainable businesses is to keep going, and things should get better. And at least we've got clarity now, and it's, again, it's not as bad as it could have been.
Yeah, I think that a lot of the individuals I spoke to yesterday, that was their kind of feedback, was I was expecting it to be worse, but I don't like it very much. And I think that's sort of the human version of what we're talking about. And I think, do I think it's a tipping point for certain businesses? It might be. It might be a point where certain founders find the point at which they go, I know a lot of people who go through this mentally, am I better off being an employee than a founder? And we don't want to see that kind of pattern on Strive and Thrive. But there is a risk that this could be a tipping point for some businesses into that kind of model. And I think we need to make sure that, to your point, that the incentivization is there for all founders and SMEs to grow. You and I believe that entrepreneurship is a really valuable economic solution for the UK, and it's such a rewarding experience for individuals. And we need to make sure that is incentivized. And I think we talk a lot about high growth and high tech and research, and that's an opportunity, but the traditional sort of core businesses in the UK, to your point, are hurting. And I think it's about ensuring that they can see the wood for trees here and find the growth in the opportunities.
Yeah, and I would encourage people in the position you just described to keep going. I think it's good if we focus on the positives. The markets have responded marginally positively because they were expecting worse. Hopefully, we'll move in the right direction. Things will start slowly improving, and the next budget will ease off on some of the punitive increases. Now, some of those increases are going to be delayed, right? So the pension change, for example, which is not positive, doesn't kick in until 2029. So there is some kind of staggering of these measures as well. So I would just focus on what you can control. You can't influence what's happened with the budget. It's happened, right? And we have to accept it, unfortunately. But look ahead, plan carefully, and you can navigate.
Touching on the pension one, do you think that will create emergent behaviours or outcomes from this? Will people start to push more into their pension in the shorter term? Do you think it'll change how people think about using that money in the medium to longer term?
Yeah, it's a good question, right? I mean, it's a case of individual circumstances, isn't it? I mean, if you've got, if you're in a lucky position where you've got extra money, more than you need, then yeah, it makes sense to put more away into your pensions now, because you'll get more bang for your buck now than in a few years' time. Absolutely. But it really does boil down to individual circumstances. I think there are an awful lot of people who are, kind of living off, they don't have a lot of contingency left. And that's, I suppose, where we are as potentially business owners, and the country as well. So if we draw a line and start to build, hopefully that's, we'll move in the right direction. But it does mean careful planning and navigating ahead. Do look to invest if you want to, and look at the investment schemes that are available, but don't overextend.
Yeah, build solid businesses. What's your view on the budget versus the impact of the narrative around the budget and the concerns organisations have had? And do you think now that this has been announced, I know you've touched on this, but there'll be more of a stability that's there in terms of economic position?
It seems to me now we have clarity, there should be, clarity means more opportunity for stability. More opportunity for stability means more opportunity to thrive. So I would hope that there is a positive move in that direction. And to your point, there's been a lot of speculation, a lot of anxiety and hysteria, I would say. Some of it has, it's come from all sources. And actually, you read summaries of the impact of the budget from different sources and you get a very, very different take. So it's difficult. It's emotional, isn't it? It's emotional, it's personal, it's political as well. So there's a lot of factors in here. What I'm trying to do is trying to strip that away. And I think what we're trying to do really, Mike, it's not just me. We're trying to strip it away and say, look, this is where we are. Just do the best you can to navigate it. There are some opportunities here. And look, I don't think we're out of the woods yet, but things should get better.
Interesting. And I want to touch on the opportunities to try and give it a slightly more sort of what could companies think about doing. One of the areas that I've seen work well for a couple of companies I've spoken to recently is the use of the British Bank and support them. In particular, one founder who used the British Bank to help them buy out his company and grow it. I think there's an opportunity for more founders to explore the schemes that the government's proposing to help support them. And I know we're touching a little bit in technology and high value here, but we're also, I know there's companies are manufacturing and consultancy firms. So, it is more broader. Do you see the companies you work with and the companies we've been talking to really thinking about these schemes? Or do you think that there's not enough proactivity in using these government schemes to help them?
I think there's a couple of things to unpack, and it's something that we have to be proactive as business owners to see what schemes are out there. But something that you and I, Mike, have discussed is that some of these schemes are heavily administrative and quite burdensome in terms of applying for, etc. So what I'd like to see the government do, and potentially HMRC, where relevant, is actually make these schemes. You want to ensure that the people applying are doing it and following the rules, and I get that. But you don't want a process to take months, and you don't want a process that costs a business a lot of money to go through without a guarantee of actually receiving funds. And time is money for SME business owners, right? I don't want to spend a week applying for something that I might not get, quite frankly. So it's getting that balance right. Sorry,
let me tell you about my experience. I've got a government grant scheme running at the moment, and it is an incredible opportunity. It's a significant amount of money. It's working with some really fascinating large corporate organizations. We're leading it. But it is a challenge to run it. and deliver it. It took us nearly a year and a half to secure it. So it was a big project. It was big in scope. It's an amazing opportunity, and there's probably a whole version of Strive and Thrive that I could talk to you about that. But I think what it has enabled me to do is scale the business quickly off the back of getting this exercise and working. And it was to your point, it's an opportunity. And I think if companies want to consider doing those kind of schemes, going eyes wide, it's not a quick win, but open your eyes to it. And there's some real opportunities out there. And I think it's working out what that looks like for you as a business.
Yeah, definitely. I think the onus is on you as a business owner to look at what schemes are available, to assess which ones actually work for your business and which ones you can viably and realistically apply for with success. Yeah, so, for some of them, you might need external support. And it might be worth having, a chat to the right party. So, for example, if it's grants, innovation type stuff, there are specialist consultancies out there that can help you. Hopefully,
same with R&D tax credits as well, right? That is a difficult one to navigate, but if you can work out how to do it, it's good.
Yeah, 100%. So it might be worth having preliminary chats with those types of support businesses to see what they think of your scenario. So it's worth the investigation, and it's worth the time if you can get a meaningful win out of it. And I think that's worth exploring. But yeah, my challenge and hope to the government and the authorities running those schemes is please make those schemes as simple and transparent and easy to apply for as you feasibly can, given the requirements you need to make sure that that the funds are going to the right businesses and the right people.
Yeah, I've also seen some good work in the enterprise investment schemes, and if founders want to look what is local to them, they can often tap into these enterprise systems. They don't just give you money, but they are often an opportunity to help you grow your business locally, help you think about what your business model is, help you navigate some of the things we're talking about here, provide mentorship to support to your organization. There's quite a lot of support locally for businesses to do that, and I think not as many businesses take advantage of it as they could.
Okay, no, that's good advice. That's good advice, and we need all the help we can get, right, as growing businesses. So that makes complete sense.
Really good. So Romesh, what's your kind of reflection now, having done the analysis? Talk to me about it. What's your reflection?
Well, look, I'm going to repeat myself a little bit here, Sophie, but look, my message is it's not great as a budget. It's probably overall quite punitive, quite tough for SME owners and business leadership, but it could have been worse. So in the general scheme of things, it's not the worst budget out there. Keep going. We are where we are. We can't influence or change it. Next round should be better. And if you think of election cycles and all that kind of stuff, you'd imagine that would be, something that we should be able to look forward to. We should now draw a line as the uncertainty is gone, right? We can plan ahead with more certainty and hope for enhanced government support and incentives next time round as the economy improves. And if you can take advantage of any of the incentive schemes the government has put out there or is enhanced with this budget, that could be very helpful to you. Do have a look at that. And my hope is finally that the government, next time around looks at smaller SMEs and incentivizes finance and encourages financial sustainability, as well as the kind of innovative sector, because I think productivity is based on a blend of different kinds of businesses all thriving together. So yeah, that's my message, and hopefully that resonates.
And what are you going to do, Romesh, as founder of FD? What does it mean for you as a personal business owner?
Well, I think we've just got to. I'll have a look at at some of those incentive schemes, but really, for my business and my consultants, it's a hit. It's a hit right now, ultimately. But I think things will get better. I'm hoping that businesses, now the line has been drawn, will take things forwards. We'll start to invest carefully in a well-managed way, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to support our current clients well and help grow by bringing on board other businesses that want to succeed, in that way also. So, we're in the same boat as your businesses, Mike, as well, right? We're just navigating carefully and trying to get that balance right.
Yeah, I've got two parts of my business, and one of them will be hit harder than the other. One is the high growth and is getting grants and can leverage the opportunities. But I think the other side is going to be hurt by what's happened, and it's about ensuring that business is sustainable. The most important thing for me in both areas is that there's some economic stability and confidence from customers.
Yeah,
will be way more impactful than any impact of this budget. And so for me, it's that economic confidence is really what I'm looking for. For me as well, I think if I think about all the people we talk to on Strive and Thrive and I network with on a day-to-day basis, founders and SME strength is doing what we do best, which is kind of navigating all the headwinds that come against us. And I think my recommendation to all the companies out there listening is kind of work hard. It's a roller coaster ride, as we always talk about, running a budget and running a business in navigating this budget. Assess what that impact is for you. Where are the opportunities? What are the risks? Keep building a sustainable business and keep going.
Yeah. Things will get better, guys.
Yeah. Really good. Thank you very much, Romesh. I know you put a lot of effort into sort of digging deep into this and assessing the impact, and it's really, really interesting, and I hope that our listeners have found it useful. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening or watching, and we hope you enjoyed this special edition. Strive and Thrive is a podcast for entrepreneurs, founders, and business leaders. Please like, follow, and subscribe to our YouTube and podcast channels.
Thank you for listening to Strive and Thrive.